Good morning, year six. I hope you're well and have had a good morning so far. Today, in our English, we're going to be looking at using subordinating conjunctions, and we're going to do that as part of our work in an attempt to write some compound sentences which relate to the Just So stories. So, you will have read at least two of those stories yesterday as part of your home learning. They were written by Rudyard Kipling, who is also the same author of The Jungle Book. To be successful in today's session, then, what you'll need to be able to do by the end of it is identify what subordinating conjunctions and other types of conjunction are. You'll clarify the purpose of the job of those different types of conjunction. You'll identify different types of clauses within sentences. You'll be able to highlight and identify different types of sentences. So there's more than one type of sentence. So we've said here about compound sentences, but we'll also look at some simple and some complex sentences. And you'll also then deliver deliver some information, so write some information in some compound sentences. Looking forward to reading these bits of writing. Okay. So first job we've got to do, and you've got a version of this on your pack from today, is to sort the events into the correct story. So if you see here, there's 3 events for each of the 3 stories. Now, you will have read 2 of the stories at least yesterday, so you should be able to sort the events for your 2 stories, and then the ones that remain will go into the 3rd column. Okay, so have a go. See if you can identify where the weather was key in the story, where the animal's character altered as the story developed, where the animal was perceived to be lazy. So sort through these, cut them up if you want, stick them in or copy them out, or maybe just write a number or a letter for each one. So you might say A is for the whale story, camel story is B, and the rhino story is C. So however you want to sort them, you decide. Pause the video while you do that, and then we'll look at these once we've summarized and recalled our elements of our story. Okay, looking through them, we can see that the weather was key to the story and the animal's character altered, both reference the rhino story. The animal being perceived as lazy was from the camel story. The animal's throat was hurt, so that's the whale whose throat was hurt by those suspenders. The mariner was another character within that story. Then we've got the magic was being used, which was how the appearance of the camel was altered. The animal could store food, so that's the camel in the that red box there. Now the protagonist, so protagonist is that synonym for the main character. So the protagonist was impolite, was the rhino, and then we've got the animal was made to feel uncomfortable by prey it had eaten. So that's that mariner who had been consumed by the whale, that therefore affected the throat of the whale. Okay. Guys, just having a look now at some vocabulary. So we've got some vocabulary from the Just So stories here. We've got suspenders, idleness, and splendor. Which one of these stories do you think each of these words relates to? Okay, so sorry, which definition is this? Is it from the way for suspenders? Is it idleness or is it splendor? So the definition is an item for keeping garments from falling down. Do I think that's splendor? Do I think that's idleness? Or do I think that's suspenders? Hopefully, I've spotted that that is suspenders. We'll see. Then word part. So the root of this. If I break down this word, part of this word means to waste time. Which word is that going to be? Sus or idle or splen? An image of somebody doing this, or an image of this thing. Is this an image of idleness, of splendor, or of suspenders? Then I've got a synonym for this word, brilliant or magnificent. So each of these guys, the answers that I'm clicking on these boxes to have are for one of the different words. So we've got 3 words at the top: suspenders, idleness, and splendor. Which one's related to each one? It's just a different way of presenting it, really, to get your brain thinking. Antonym, so an opposite meaning for this word is opposite is energetic. And then I could fill in the gap in this sentence with splendor, suspenders, or idleness. So I was overwhelmed with the of your house. What would the word be there? So what was I overwhelmed with about your house? Okay. Right, guys, having a look then. So the first one, suspenders is the item which keeps garments from falling down. The root word there is the idle. Idleness is to waste time, to idle away time. The image there is of the suspenders. The synonym there is brilliance and magnificence, which is synonymous with splendor. The antonym of idleness is energetic. And the usage there, I was overwhelmed with the splendor of your house. So the magnificence, the brilliance of your house. Okay, guys, now what you're going to do is you're going to have the same task where you're going to pick one of your words. Okay, so you're going to pick one of your words. So it might be pranced, reflection, or waddled, and you're going to complete one of these for that, please. Okay, so that was just a bit of an activity to get you thinking about what words mean. Right, guys, the main skill today is those subordinating conjunctions. There's three types of sentence that we're going to think about today: simple, compound, and complex. Now, simple sentences have a subject and a verb. They've got a single independent clause, and they make sense all on their own. Okay, so they don't need anything added to them to make sense. The whale ate all of the fish is an example of a simple sentence. Sorry. Within that sentence, we have the subject, and the verb is eat, okay, and the whale is doing the eating. Okay. Here we've got the stute fish, which is the subject, and the verb is to hide. The mariner, for the third sentence, is doing the sitting on the raft. Okay. Okay, now we've got compound sentences. They've got more than one clause, okay? And they're joined with what's called a coordinating conjunction. Okay, and, but, or. Okay, these are three coordinating conjunctions: and, but, and, or. Okay, they join similar things if they're and. They're the opposite. The contrasts of their but and or shows that we've got a choice, but they are all joining independent clauses. Okay, so which coordinating conjunction should go in these sentences? So we've got three sentences which have been cut up, mixed up. What should we put between the two? So the whale opened his mouth. He swallowed the mariner. The mariner was inside the whale. He didn't panic. And then finally, the story might be true. It might be fiction. Instead of what should you put for each of these, please? Copy the sentences out, please, and complete them with the relevant coordinating conjunctions. Okay, pause in your video if you haven't done that yet. If you have, well done. We can see that the first one, the whale opened his mouth and he swallowed the mariner. The mariner was inside the whale, but he didn't panic. Okay, that's why I was able to think of the scheme to allow him to escape. And then the story might be true or it might be fiction. Okay, personally, I think it's probably fiction due to the fact I've never heard a first-hand account of this mariner in news media, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm being too much of a historian there. Okay, guys, now simple, compound, and complex sentences. Okay, so we're looking at compound sentences, so with those coordinating conjunctions and or. Okay, and we're thinking now about complex sentences. Now, these can contain a main and a subordinate clause, and the subordinate give it this extra information, and they show how ideas relate to each other. So we've got the main clause and the subordinate clause. The main ones on this screen are in red. The subordinate ones are in green. So the subordinate ones give that extra information. The mariner sat on the raft. So that makes sense on its own. That could be a simple sentence. Okay, that main clause, it makes sense on its own. But then we've got that subordinate clause, which tells us something else about what's going on, that extra information. So we now know that the mariner wasn't just sat on the raft upright with his feet out of the water. We know that his feet were dangling, trailing into the water because his toes were trailing in the water. That makes me think he's tired, or it makes me think he's fun-loving. It gives me a bit more of an insight into the mariner. The mariner sat on the raft feeling despondent. Now I know how his mind's working. Is he happy, or is he worried that this great big whale is about to consume him? Now, I can swap the order of these around, and this is something I'd like you to try and do with more and more of your writing year 6. I think it's really important we avoid always referring to, or always opening our sentences with the or he or other simple words. Starting with that subordinate clause at the beginning of the sentence and ending with the main clause is much more attractive as for a reader. Feeling despondent then, the mariner sat on the raft. The main clause and the subordinate clause, and we can swap the order of these around. But remember, we always need to remember that subordinate clause does not make sense on its own. Okay? Sometimes it begins, sometimes it begins with a subordinating conjunction, not always, but the subordinating conjunctions then, we've got our because, while, and since. So those subordinating conjunctions there, because, while, and since. And again, these can move around. So if I think about these sentences, rather than the animals were angry, I could start this with because. Because the camel was not working, comma, the animals were angry. Okay, and while they were complaining, comma, the jinn appeared. And since he had his hump, the camel could work for 3 days. So I can alter the order of the subordinate, and the main clause. So I can switch the order around. The variety of common subordinating conjunctions here. So I think there's 30. So rather than have you listen to me say them out, I'm going to pick 3 of them that I really like. I like whereas, I like once, and I'm a big fan of even though. Okay, so I like those 3, but I like all of them as well. And I look forward to seeing you use them in your writing with some complex sentences as the week goes on. Okay, but we need those subordinating conjunctions within those complex sentences. Okay, so your work today. Okay, so you've got a piece of writing, such as the animals are angry because the camel was not working. So you're going to use some common subordinating conjunctions, such as because, while, and since, and try and join together those main and those subordinate clauses. And as I say earlier, we can try and use those subordinating clauses at the beginning rather than the end of sentences where possible. Okay, so this gives you a bit of an idea. It might start with something where you use sorry, I'm just going back. You might start with the animals were angry because, and then why would the other animals be angry? And then rather than having this sentence about the jinn, you might start a different sentence relating to the animals in your just so stories, using the word while at the beginning of it and since at the beginning of it. So can you think about different ways of using these subordinating conjunctions in some of those complex sentences? Second task then, thinking about compound sentences. So these are the ones again which have extra information in. And with these compound sentences, then we've got the idea that these use those conjunctions of and, but, and or, those coordinating conjunctions, to just add that extra information, but keeping those 2 clauses clearly separate. Okay. What I'd like you to do here is to write at least 5 sentences, compound sentences, which are linked with and, but, and or, about your just so stories. Now, I'd really like you to write using that rich vocabulary. So I'd like you to try and use as many of the new language points that you've found as possible. Now, in your science today, you've looked at species as a word. Could you use the word species in one of your sentences? You might even really, really wow me and use some of the other words relating to Carl Linnaeus and his classification system to show how we've understood different aspects of the science, but relate that to the just so stories. So I look forward to seeing those. Guys, thank you for listening. Sorry I've spoken at a bit of 100 miles an hour. It's just the nature of these videos. Just to refresh then, just to go back over that. So 2 tasks today, using these subordinating conjunctions, because, while, since, and the other ones in the blue box on the screen, around either the just so stories or around anything else. And I'd like at least 5 sentences using those. And then I'd like you to use some of these compound sentences where you've joined them with and, but, or, okay, and these can be about the just so stories as well. And trying as much as possible to utilize the vocabulary that you're learning in your wider reading in your geography, your history, your science, and our private peaceful work as well, please. Thank you for that, guys. I look forward to seeing those completed pieces of work very soon.